Hello, my name is Max and welcome to Tabletop Reviews, where today I'm bringing you something different. I am bringing you a comparison between Zooloretto and Zooloretto Duel. This is something I want to do more. I have a few other games where I have a dual version and a regular version, or just different versions of the game, and I kind of want to try and do straight comparisons like this, just talking about the two games and how do they compare. The compare and play account, not really fair on this one, but how do they compare in components? Do you feel like the game is here? Obviously it's going to be quite different depending on how the games are, right? I also have Aquaretto, I might do a comparison there. So, and then we'll figure out which is the better game. So, let's get into this one. So, Zooloretto, let's just do over the facts. Zooloretto is a zoo building game. You have your own little board where you're trying to build up. We have 4 enclosures. You have the opportunity of buying a 5th enclosure. Every game you're drafting tiles to put on trucks. And those tiles are either coins, animals, or congression stands, to sort of which will help in scoring. You put them on one of the trucks. If you have 3 players, there are 3 trucks with room of 3 tiles, and you put it on one of those trucks. Then you now can choose, or you can choose to take a truck that already has a minimum of 1 tile on it. Is it better to take 1 tile? Is it better to wait until there are 3 tiles? You tell me. But you'll go around drafting, or you can perform a money action, which is buying that extra enclosure, discarding some animals from your barn, because those are minus points, changing out animals in your barn with animals in your zoo, again changing around on the minus points. Depends on how you, and those of course cost a range of coins. So you go around drafting, using coin and money action, or taking those trucks. When you take the truck, immediately place all tiles into your zoo, into enclosures if possible for the animals, onto empty congression stands if possible areas, or into your barn with anything that can't be there for minus points at the end. And at the end you score points based on how many animals you have in your different enclosures, and the congression stands can help you. If you haven't filled the enclosures, the congression stands will still enable you to score a little bit. You have minus points for every kind of animal you have in your barn, and every kind of congression stand, and you'll also score points for every kind of congression stand you have in the zoo. Scoring all those points up, tiling in together, and then, well, whoever has the most points win. I think that's the quickest I could explain this one. I have a whole bunch of extra stuff in here as well, a bunch of things, but that's not, this is just the base game. So the base game is Zooloretto Duel. Zooloretto Duel, you have a little sort of a row of all the animals with some numbers on it. So start at gorilla at 3, go up to the hyena at 8, and you have the congression stands. You this time have cards where you can draft it out into a truck with room for 1 card, or 2 trucks where there's room for 2 cards. Draft up the cards. These cards can either be an animal or they can be a congression stands, then no coins. And you again draft it up, look at it, place it on a truck. As soon as there is a minimum of 1 animal in the trucks, you can take those and then immediately place it on your row belong to the animal. There are no what's it called, barn. I just freaking said the word. Place them up there. Now the number determines when you flip over the tile. So when there are 3 gorillas, so let's say I have 2, my opponent has 1, there are 3 gorillas, that one will be flipped over. I will take a bonus tile because I have the most, and then that will be scored. But it will still be, you will still be capable of adding cards to it, so you can still add gorillas, because at the end of the game, whoever has the most then also get a bonus. They get a bonus 1 point. I can, as the one who flew when the tile was flipped over, I can get a bonus of between 2 and 4, I believe. Or it might just be 2 or 3. But still better than just the 1 bonus at the end of the game. There are also some symbols on it. There are heart symbols. I totally forgot to mention that in Zooloretto you have male and female. Some of them are. The others are binary. Non-binary. They can make a baby. Yay! In this one you have the heart symbol. If you get 2 heart symbols after 1 animal, you get a baby. There are only 3 animals that can have babies, and there are only 1 of each baby in the game, but there are more heart symbols. So be the first to get all the 2 heart symbols of the bears, of the tigers, or the hyenas, to get those. There's also the lightning symbol, which if you get 2 lightning symbols, that's a minus 1 point. And then there are all the green squares, which means if you get 2 green squares of the same animal, of course, of the same animal, of the same animal, of the same animal, then you get to take from the discard pile and add one of those to your enclosure. If you get a 3rd of any of the symbols, or a 4th, or a 5th, you get minus 1 point for every one you go over. Yeah. Of course, this will be one truck over because you are only 2 players. There will be one truck that wasn't picked up. The cards in that truck become discarded. For 2 coins, you can either steal an animal from your opponent, add it to your enclosure, or get rid of all minus points you've gotten throughout the game. At the end, as I say, you have the bonuses from when you scored the animals. That's what they call it when you flip it over and you have the maximum. And you get 1 bonus point for every animal you have the most of. And also the congression stands is the same. Have the most congression stands, get +1 point. Those are different. There are 4 different congression stands, and if you have one of each 4 of those, the tile is flipped over and scored, and you are most likely going to get it. But you know your opponent might still have more than you and get the boost scoring for that one. Boy, I think I've gone through all that. 1 point for 2 coins, and otherwise you just score up the points you from when you scored the tile. Then of course, having the most of any of the animals, whoever had the most points wins. How did it take me longer to explain the short game than it did the long game? Yes. Now, player count is not one I will be comparing here because Zooloretto Duel is obviously a 2-player variant of Zooloretto. Now, Zooloretto already plays at 2. So, let's make the straight comparison. Which game would I, if I had 2 players, which game would I rather play? Zooloretto. Unfortunately, Zooloretto, I can might as well say, Zooloretto Duel is a 9 out of 10. Zooloretto is to me a 10 out of 10, my favorite game of all time. And even at 2 players, I would still prefer to play Zooloretto. But if I needed a small travel game for just a little road trip with my fiance or something, Zooloretto Duel is probably one of the ones I would take out because it is still absolutely brilliant. The gameplay is different in the theme, comes more across in Zooloretto because you actually have a zoo. You have a limited amount of space in enclosures. And otherwise you need to get your animals out of the zoo, and that's bad when you don't showcase them. Whilst in Zooloretto Duel you just have room for all the animals, as many as you want, it does not matter. So you're kind of taking out of the theme in that one. Now the gameplay is very similar, and you load on the trucks and then you choose the trucks. Now the 2-player of Zooloretto. There are 2 ways to play really. The rules say you have 1 truck with room for 3, 1 truck with room for 2, and 1 truck with room for 1. The Zooloretto XXL expansion actually gives you a trucks that only have 2 rooms or 1 room. Otherwise you have to use all 3. Changing it up a little bit because you can get to choose which ones will become the one with 3, the one with 2, the one with 1. Obviously with the XXL expansion you don't get to choose. Afterwards it's the person that drafts the tile that gets to choose. But you could also just play it where you have 2 trucks with room for 3 in it, which is the regular rules is that you just have 1 truck for every player. So a little bit of different ways to play it at 2 players. Well, there's of course obviously just this one way, which is better. I think it's better to be focused, very focused, like Zooloretto Duel. It knows what it wants to do, it knows how it's going to do it. While Zooloretto works perfectly fine playing the regular game, 1 truck per player, but you also have this different way, and then with the XXL expansion you now have a different way even. It's not very focused, and that's a point for Zooloretto Duel. Now the purpose here is, I don't think, to say that Zooloretto Duel is better or not than Zooloretto. I think Zooloretto is a brilliant game that spawns a dual player game. The gameplay, as I said, what works better, the tiles or the cards? Well, I think the tiles work better in terms of the drafting. And yeah, it just works better. The components are better in Zooloretto. So what is the point of Zooloretto Duel? When the game already works really well at 2 players, components are a bit better, and you would prefer this one. What is the purpose of Zooloretto Duel? I think it's just the purpose of Michael Shack showing that he can make a worse game and still be better than so many. The brilliant thing about Zooloretto Duel is I've played a few duel games. They never feel like they needed to be duel games. I've played Splendor Duel, I've played 7 Wonders Duel, I'm about to play Catan Duel, I've played another duel, what was that one called? I can't remember what the other duel was. But they've always felt like they could easily compatible with more players. They don't have to be 2-player games, they can be multiple players in this game. Why are they duel games? Zooloretto Duel really goes in and says this is a 2-player game. It is a 2-player game. Done. We have Aquaretto, we've expanded that one. This is a 2-player game and they make it a 2-player game, and I love that. So often duel games are just a different version. This is a 2-player game, no doubt about it. That's what it wants to be, and that's what it is. Changing it up to play with more players, I don't think that would work very well. It wouldn't look good, it wouldn't feel good. This is a 2-player game and I think that's absolutely brilliant. Does it capture Zooloretto very well into Duel atmosphere. Well, as I said, the theme goes a little bit astray. But overall it does. You have the drafting, and then you have the drafting from the card pile, and then you have the, what's it called? The choosing of the trucks and placing them in. Although you don't have to think about how you place in the cards, you still choose about what you get, because do I want another heart symbol just because it's a good card, maybe? You know, maybe it's the bears, maybe they give me 4 bears, my opponent has 1. That's a really strong position in terms of getting, because the bears are 6, so I'm really close there. So is that worth it with that -1 point I'm going to get, because it's a heart? Still the choice. It's simpler, which I think is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to just make a simpler Duel version. So overall, I'm very happy about Zooloretto Duel. I don't think I'm very focused on my comparison video here to fully. I don't know. I think in my review of Zooloretto Duel I did a little bit too much comparison between them. I shouldn't have done that. That ruins it for this one. I will try not to do that in my review for Apparato, so I can do this. I'm not going to do a review for Catan Duel, so I can do a full-on comparison. But yeah, overall, what is the comparison to be made here? Well, Zooloretto, does it capture Zooloretto Duel? Zooloretto Duel, does it capture Zooloretto? It does it very well, capture it. I would give it a 7 out of 10 in capturing Zooloretto. Is it a good game? As I say, it's a 9 out of 10 game. For me, if I remove this Zooloretto from picture, just focus on Duel, that's a 9 out of 10 game right over there. There's a few things I would have like to see big different, maybe more accessibility for coins, maybe coin actions being a bit different, maybe no coins at all. That's sort of where I'm at. The coins are a bit iffy for me on this one. Was it needed? Well, see, that's the big question. No game is needed, and I don't think that's a fair thing to say ever. So yeah, I mean, if you love Zooloretto, I think you're going to like Zooloretto Duel, maybe even love that as well. And I would say totally get that. If you don't know anything about Zooloretto and you're looking for a 2-player game that's simple and has animals, Zooloretto Duel is again definitely on a recommendation. So I think overall Zooloretto Duel is a game that holds up really well on its own, and in a comparison to Zooloretto, to the regular Zooloretto, it also holds up really well, being just an overall really good game. 2 brilliant games right here, and thank you very much for watching this episode of Tabletop Reviews. I will see you in the next one. Bye!